Good afternoon and welcome to BizTech's Asian Midday Market Watch, powered by the Smart Investor Singapore. It's Thursday, the 1st of December, and we have our regular Thursday guest, David Kuo, founder of the Smart Investor Singapore. David, good afternoon.
Hey, selamat tengah hari, Brian.
Selamat tengah hari. It's fabulous weather here in KL, and I hope it's great weather for you in Singapore as well.
It is. The sun is shining, finally.
So now, before we get your insights, David, I'm going to take a look at how the numbers look like across the region. We'll start with cryptocurrencies and then move on to regional stock markets. Bitcoin is at 17,142. It's up 1.62%. Ethereum is at 1,285. It's up 1.44%. Now, looking across to regional stock markets, we start with the SGX, which is up 0.15%. The KLCI is up 0.38%. Shanghai is up 0.68%. The ASX All Ordinaries is up 0.91%. The Nikkei is up 1.15%. The Hang Seng is up 1.46%. And rounding up the numbers, we've got the Kospi, which is up 0.21%. So, David, this is a very unusual market situation compared to what David's normally on, which is a sea of red. Tell us about the sea of green, David, today.
Well, I suppose some people out there would be hoping for a better performance here in Asia, given what went on in America last night, with the Dow Jones, the S&P, and also the Nasdaq all rising quite substantially. When you have a look at the Asian markets, it was a little bit muted, apart from, say, Hong Kong and Japan. The rest of the markets were only up fractions of a percent. So I guess maybe the people over here are a little bit more skeptical about what Jerome Powell said yesterday, but we'll talk about that a bit later on. And so maybe they are more focused on local issues and what is actually sort of happening around the region, rather than what the Federal Reserve may or may not do in December, Brian.
Okay, and let's talk about that, because Jerome Powell alluded to the fact that rate hikes are going to be smaller moving forward and didn't talk about terminal rates at all. Tell us what your interpretation of this, his Fed speak, is all about, because obviously markets in the North America took it with a huge dollop of optimism.
You're absolutely right. And the thing is, it was a bit of a head scratcher as far as I was concerned, because I listened to what Jay Powell had to say, and he didn't say anything new. I mean, what he's always said is that it'll be data dependent. And so therefore, interest rates are likely to rise because inflation is not under control yet. But I think the good thing that people took away from that was that instead of a 0.75% increase in December, this month, it is more likely to be 0.5%. But what he also said was that it is quite likely that the terminal rate, or that the final interest rate, will be a lot higher than what the market was expecting. He didn't put a number on it. He didn't put a time scale on it. All he said was that it was likely to be higher. Now, I am a skeptic, and I just think, right, this is December, and a lot of the fund managers will be closing their books and handing their report cards to their investors, right? And so generally what happens around this time of the month is there's an awful lot of window dressing. It's a bit like somebody whose mother-in-law is going to come and visit, and they sort of spend the next few days cleaning the house and make sure there are no cobwebs in the corner. And I think this is really what's happening in the market. They are hanging on the possibility, right? And they are telling the story that, interest rates are not going to be increasing that much. That creates optimism, as you quite rightly said, in the market. And so there'll be many investors out there who don't want to miss out in the Santa rally. And so they'll be going and buying these shares, which gives an opportunity for the fund managers, when the share price is quite high, they will actually sort of clean their books and they will sell. And then they'll be able to hand the report card to their investors and say, hey, look, how clever was I throughout 2022? I have produced for you a profit. And so therefore, carry on investing with me in 2023. The danger, of course, is that when the books are finally closed and 2023 arrives, we may not get a follow through. And we may actually sort of see people coming to the realization that, yes, inflation is still a problem. Yes, interest rates will carry on rising. And yes, the problems that we saw in 2022 are still going to be there in 2023, Brian. But for now, the fund managers are talking up their own books and they're doing their regular window dressing in December.
So, David, this brings to mind really the after effects of a party. We're going to have this Christmas party, New Year party, but that we have to deal with the hangover and the spill-off of those parties and that party week in January. But the thing is, the underlying problems are still there, one of which globally is the China story, and the China story around the lockdowns. What's your take on this, and how is this going to play out? Because there have been some changes over the last few days.
Well, I think it is more than just the COVID. I think it is really the rebellion by many of the Chinese people, not only in China, but the China nationals outside of China. They are protesting outside certain embassies and consulates, and they're saying that the president must go. Now, when you have a look at what is going on in China, people are saying, oh, it looks as though China is going to relax its COVID-0 strategy, and it is quite likely that they will reopen fairly soon. The danger, of course, is that no government should do what is popular, but do what is right. One of the big dangers when trying to do things to appeal to the populace is that you may end up doing the wrong thing. So people are saying, oh, China is going to relax, China is going to reopen. The question is, why? Why are they going to relax and why are they going to reopen? Nothing has changed there. The only time, and we have learned through experience, all of us outside of China have learned through experience that the only way that you can open up an economy, right, is to vaccinate the population and vaccinate the population with a vaccine that works. Now, the problem that China has is that it hasn't vaccinated its population. And so therefore, if they were to reopen and relax all of this restrictions that is going on, is that the virus is just going to run rife throughout the entire Chinese community. And that is the big danger that we have. We know, you know, Brian, I mean, it wasn't pleasant when we had restrictions and movement restrictions and lockdowns and not being able to go out. It wasn't pleasant. But what the strategy with all of those administrations was that we'll keep you locked in for now, right? That we have to do to stop the spread of the virus. Meanwhile, we'll go and vaccinate the population. And when a critical number of people have been vaccinated, then we can safely reopen. You cannot reopen until you're vaccinated. So all those people who are saying, oh, China is going to relax its zero COVID strategy. How? Because the people haven't been vaccinated. And those who have been vaccinated with a vaccine that is less efficient than what is available outside. So I guess the big danger is that, sure, you may want to reopen, and maybe you want to celebrate Chinese New Year, but just wait until after Chinese New Year, after the holiday period, and see what is going to happen in China. The hospitals will not be able to cope with the number of people that get infected. That, I think, is the danger. So maybe people are embarking on a bit of wishful thinking at the moment that everything is going to be fine, but it won't be fine until people are vaccinated.
And David, you know, I tend to agree with you, because think of predictable behavior from the Chinese government in the past. They've always done what they thought was right, not what the people wanted. So I think what your thinking is probably aligned with the Chinese thinking. Maybe after Chinese New Year, they've vaccinated people, then they may relax stuff. But I think you're spot on. They're probably going to keep these restrictions on longer rather than shorter. But on a different note, I want to end by talking about the FTX saga and Sam Bankman-Fried's comments about this whole saga in an interview yesterday. Could you just share? Because for me, it seemed like he was totally disconnected from reality.
I think he's living on a different planet. I mean, he gave an interview to Andrew Sorkin from CNBC. And you got the impression that he was a bit like a schoolboy who had broken somebody's window and then said, first of all, it wasn't me. And secondly, even if it was me, I didn't know what I was doing. So therefore, please forgive me. It'll be okay. The problem, I think, is he's trying to play the victim rather than the perpetrator of what is going on. Just to simply say, I didn't know what was going on at Alameda, is just nonsense, Brian. I mean, he knew what was going on, right? He knew exactly what was going on. It was only when he was found out that he said, oh, I didn't know what was going on. People found out what was going on. He was lending money to Alameda. Alameda lost the money and then couldn't repay the loan. That was what happened. And so I think there's going to be an investigation, and I think there may even be criminal proceedings against him when they find out what is going on. So for him, maybe the best thing he can do is to find somewhere safe that is away from the US jurisdiction, and just like he did yesterday, conduct the interview on video from somewhere else, because if you end up in the UK, I think you're going to have to answer for all the things that you have done, because people have lost millions, if not billions of dollars, Brian.
Absolutely, David. And on that note, thank you very much for taking your time to be on the show.
Thank you.
I'm Brian Fernandez, and I've been speaking to David Kuo, founder of The Smart Investor, coming out of Singapore on BizTech's Asian Midday Market Watch, powered by The Smart Investor Singapore. I'm Brian Fernandez. This interview will be on our website, www.biztech.asia, as well as our social media platforms. It'll also be on our syndication partners' TV stations, radio stations, and websites. Thanks a lot for tuning in.